Rethink Everything.
And so that's what's happening now. That's why so many people are going through a kind of hell realm on the planet in their personal life, because they haven't done the work, of this purification work. And it's difficult work, because in this realm of duality, we're so programmed to move away from pain towards pleasure. And so we're not taught about sitting with our demons. We're not taught about allowing pain. So we just want to fix the pain by moving to pleasure. So rather than experiencing the pain, we'll just pour a nice glass of wine and, just dissolve ourselves and just try and get rid of it. And so we'll try and fix our life through artificial means of just trying to be happy, make it go away, whereas the real work is actually to sit with the demons and to say, hey, what are you showing me?
Rethink Everything.
I specialised in personal taxation, and I started out as an office junior in a little firm in Chelmsford and kind of worked my way up and finally arrived at Arthur Andersen with the qualification that I'd kind of got through self-study. But I specialised in Lloyd's underwriters, so I had a kind of perfect training for a specialisation that they really needed, because you can't normally work for Arthur Andersen unless you're kind of Oxford, Cambridge educated, So it was a wonderful kind of roundabout route to get to like the top firm in the world at that point.
Yeah. What was it then about Red Letter Days when you saw the opportunity and obviously had this background in understanding figures? What was it that you saw? What was the opportunity that sort of showed itself to you?
Well, what actually happened after Arthur Andersen, I kind of knew that wasn't the life for me, but I didn't know what was. And I just went off traveling and sort of followed my heart, really. And then I went across America and then came back and thought, now's the time. I really want to set up in business, because I'd grown up above my dad's shop, and I'd lived around business, and I'd always kind of, admired my dad. Anyway, money was kind of running out because I'd been away for kind of 6 months or something. So I just thought I'll take a little job freelancing. And one of the, so obviously I put the message out to the universe, this desire to create a business. Obviously, most people who want to go into business don't know what to do. Anyway, so I took this job freelancing in accountancy just to kind of make ends meet. And one of the clients, this was just a little firm in the city, actually, right at St. Bride's in Fleet Street. One of the clients was a little company called Scrooge and Marley, interestingly, which I actually landed the teaching of that only literally last week. I landed the teaching of that. Anyway, so this was a little company that did strange little cards, experience cards for birthdays. And obviously I had access to their file, and I knew that they were loss making, and I could see their collateral, that it wasn't very good. But I thought, what a great idea. And so it kind of, that planted a seed, really, and a seed, thoughts are seeds. And it kind of started to take root, and I started to think about what I would do. And at the time I was lodging with a guy who was a creative writer for imagination, and I told him about this kind of concept and this idea. And the next day he came back from work with this whole list of different names that he'd written, and one of them was Red Letter Days, in amongst things like dreams come true and wishing well. And it's like Red Letter Days, and I thought, that's it, what a perfect name. And it happened to be 4th of July, and as we know, there's no coincidences. It happened to be 4th of July, and he lived in this apartment on the Thames, and we could see fireworks going off over Tower Bridge in the distance. And I thought, wow, what a great omen. And so next day I went down to the city. Obviously this was back in 1989, so this is way before the internet, way before mobile phones even, and set up the company on the 5th of July 1989. yeah, and so that was the start. And of course, I thought it would just be really easy. You know, you start a business, set up, and money just starts flowing in. And that was when I started to realize that it's very, very difficult to transform an idea into a thriving business, which is making money, making profits. And it's kind of set me on this kind of, 16-year journey with Red Letter Days of discovery and understanding business, like at the coalface, really.
So what do you think has been your hardest lesson that you've learned through the Red Letter Days experience?
Well, I think we're learning all the time, aren't we? And I think if you want to talk about the hardest lesson, I would say it was probably in the sense of when I was in resistance to the teachings, really. I know this from doing a lot of, esoteric kind of transformational work, is resistance, where we don't want to learn and we're struggling and fighting and we're in fear and we're not open to the teaching and the learning. Life becomes very difficult and life becomes a struggle because you're essentially trying to go against the cosmic flow. And so it probably was in the last few years when I just wouldn't let go. And like the universe was trying to take that business away from me. And I was like, no, I don't want to let it go. And so I was essentially in a battle with the cosmos. And obviously the cosmos won, but not after a sort of 3-year, very painful, bloody battle of holding on like a woman possessed, because I really couldn't see. I thought that was my life, Red Letter Days. I really couldn't see anything beyond that. And I thought if I lose this business, because it was, we'd hit problems by then. I thought if I lose this business, I've literally lost everything. And that's the end of my life, I was so tied into it because I was so emotionally involved with it,
What's just on when you said you landed the teaching of the Scrooge and Marley. So just so I don't forget that.
Yes. Do you want me to explain that now?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So just in a sort of run up to that teaching, when I moved to this cottage, which is like a healing cocoon, I would call it, I had a space clearing by Davina McHale. And one of the things she said, because she's very psychic, she said, hunker down for the winter, and come the spring, you need to get out and weed the garden. You have to do it yourself by hand. And as you weed the garden, your life will transform. So anyway, I put this on a piece of paper and hid it away and found it like a few weeks ago and read it and thought, oh my God, yeah, the sun's come out. I better get out and weed the garden. And my garden is literally full of dandelions, which have seeded over the years. I just rent this place and no one's really tended to the garden. Anyway, so I was just out there just weeding the dandelion after dandelion. I mean, there must be 1,000 out there. It's like crazy. And of course, it's a very meditative process. And so as I'm weeding and I'm pulling out all of these it's almost like a recapitulation process, like a shamanic process of like pulling the weeds, of like a healing. And one of them, I just really was thinking about Scrooge and Marley and the story of that, where this guy who's been chasing money his whole life and he's a real miser and he just wants to make money and then more money and squirrel it away and make more money. And then he's got these employees who sort of, Bob Cratchit, who's, his works for him but can't afford to buy the turkey on Christmas Day. And he's, and he's got the kind of sun on crutches, which is very much like the 5 of Pentacles card in the tarot. Anyway, it just really landed with me that whole journey was a teaching. The whole journey of Red Letter Days and beyond was a teaching to kind of emerge from this Scrooge type persona of chasing money and to see the ghosts of Christmas, past, present and future, to completely transform into seeing the truth, which I kind of feel is the journey that life sent me on, really.
So if you were to go back to 1989 and say one sentence to what was your attitude to money, and then literally jump forward to now and say, what was your attitude to money now? How would the two sentences compare?
Well, I don't think it's as simplistic as that, because when I started out in 1989, I really had a desire to create something amazing, because I could see this potential to create this amazing experiences company of what do you buy the man who has everything. So in the DNA of that company was the essence of giving through love, because
okay.
you know. So, but it was only when I got into the business and I got sucked into that world of business, because you get sucked in. And I discovered really quickly that being my kind of vulnerable feminine self would not, I mean, I would literally be eaten alive. I really had to draw on my masculine energy, and then I got sucked into money, and then started on this sort of route. And you know, of chasing more and more, and you know, even making like £1 million profit. How can we take it to, like, we were sort of 10 million company, turning a 10 million turnover company, making £1 million profit. And of course my ego was like, oh God, wow, if we can do 10 million, make 1 million, how do we take it to 50 million and make, you know, 5 million, and how can we float it, and how can we get bigger and better and bigger? And I was sucked into that whole very sort of Donald Trump yang unevolved masculine energy, which just wants to pump it up, pump it up, pump it up, pump it up. And it's very ego driven. Whereas now I would say that I have really been taught by the universe that true prosperity is in alignment to the heart, and it's in Pachamama, and it's in everything. It's in every piece of this kind of creation, you know. And it kind of completely transcends the whole realm of duality, on which we kind of play this game of, am I winning, am I losing, am I a failure, am I a success, am I rich, am I poor? You're coming to the heart and moving into that vertical axis of connection to source, and then you just have a completely different view on the whole world, and you see the truth of that it's just love, and abundance is there in every moment of every day, you know. I think you said this, it's already here, you know. It's like we just lost our connection to it. I think you said that at the Tyringham summit, or subsequent.
What do you think is the life lesson that humanity is going through at the moment with this increased masculine energy? I mean, there's all sorts of cosmic challenges going on, which I'm sure you know about, with, you know, Saturn retrograde and center of the universe stuff going on. Victoria keeps me up to date with it.
Yeah.
You haven't had to the day today? Well, there's a reason for that. Here we go.
So yes, I mean, there's 7 planets going retrograde this year, one amongst you know, one after the other, or some parallel. So it's a very powerful year of retrograde activity, and my interpretation of it is that we're going through a great purification, and we are, and you know, I strongly believe that we are at the next stage of human evolution, which is always a quantum leap. And the universe is, I mean, essentially the universe is unconditional love, and we have absolute, as humanity, we have absolute free will, jurisdiction to create whatever we want in this realm of duality, and it is all of source. Even the mother of all bombs, it's all of source, you know, we can create whatever we want. And I think that and I know this from my personal life, if you don't listen to the lessons of the whisperings of source, because source whispers through signs and symbols very softly, and if you're not tuned into them, then source gets louder and louder and louder. And then if you're not tuned into them, or you're ignoring the signs and thinking, I know better, then the signs just getting bigger. And how many, you know, how big do the signs need to get for us to kind of stop and say, maybe this isn't the right way to drop the mother of all bombs on the planet, and to pollute our oceans, and to have war and famine, and I think that we're just being shown in a louder and louder way that we've lost our connection to, we've come a long way from the center, which is the alignment to the vertical. So we've strayed on this plane of duality into the extremes. We've really going to the extremes of that plane of duality now. You know, the extremes of rich and poor are playing out on the planet, the extremes of peace and war. So it's like we're playing on the edges of this playing field. And it's almost like it needs to get to extreme yang to return to extreme yin. You know, that's what happens when you pump up the bubble, pump it up, pump it up, pump it up. Eventually, extreme yang has to return to yin. That's the principle of duality. And there's a lot of people who are holding that kind of, in the face of this extreme yang energy, are holding the yin energy, which is the evolved feminine, in my interpretation, and who are wanting to birth this new evolution in a very beautiful way, because obviously the danger is it happens in a very harsh way, as I had to find with my Red Letter Days era. It had to be completely taken away from me in a very violent and humiliating way for me to learn the lesson, because I wouldn't gracefully follow what I was being shown, you know. So it's like had to be eventually ripped away from my grasping hands, you know, in a very kind of like a violent way, you know.
Something that occurred to me as you were saying that was, well, two things really. Firstly is that if it's all going the way it should be going, which I always say that, you know, if it is, then it must be, because you can't argue with isness. If it's happening, it's perfect. But in terms of, you know, our free will and our kind of our ability to listen to that whispering, to listen to source, but then to do something about it. Because I'm interested in source TV, for instance. You know, that taking something which is amplifying, I think, knowledge, understanding about how something works, and then trying to take it out to a larger audience. But then for me, there's that kind of like dichotomy of, well, is that our job to be teaching people when the universe is doing it anyway? What do you think about that?
Well, I have realized and have been told and know at my deepest level that, you know, when I created Source TV, I co-created it back in 2013. And I very much created it from that sort of old paradigm energy of like, well, I did Red Letter Days, and now I'm going to create a business. And that was my old experience, was in the experiences sector, and now I'm going to be in the transformation sector, and I'm going to create this business, and it's going to be a market leading brand, and it's going to be global, and yada da da da, and off we go with the old story. And then I was basically told, in fact, this is Michael Day, the psychic, who's like, he really is the Joker, the fool in the tarot, that archetype, very clever, very psychic and amazing, funny guy. He just said, this is life transformation masquerading as a business plan, Rachel. And I realized that the whole of Source is just my own journey to myself, because obviously at this, when you kind of start to really see beyond the veil, you realize there is no out there is no one else to teach and fix, and you know, it's just all leading us back to our own journey and our own healing and our own stuff. So ultimately and I actually had this such a deep teaching working with Adrian Friedman, who is a high priest. I mean, he is just a master. And he just basically said to me, and this was in the context of healing, people wanting to heal one another, you know, I am a healer and I'm going to heal you, sort of thing. And he just said, all healing is an act of ego. And I'm like, oh God. And I'm like, oh God, surely healers are just wanting to, you know, they're benevolent, wanting to help people. And he just really said that whenever you see anyone that you think needs to be healed, you just know that it's a sign to come back to your own self and your own work, and to go even deeper into your own journey, because this universe is simply mirroring what we need, the kind of transformation, purification that we need to do inside ourselves to move even closer into this alignment to source. Because essentially, anytime we're drawn into the delusion of duality and we see someone, oh my God, they need help, they need healing, it's just a sign that we've moved out of alignment into this dual plane, and we are in this place of mind as opposed to the heart. And it's a very, very kind of difficult thing to sit with, because we've been so trained in this realm of duality, this delusion, and to be in the head and to logically work it out, and to, you know, to sort of read all the books and study hard and work hard, and yet it's so simple, like it doesn't exist. It's just us, you know, like, and it's just the source showing us the whole time how we've moved out of that vertical alignment. And that sounds very grandiose, but that teaching literally landed kind of last week with me. I did a very powerful ceremony last week, and it just kind of, it's just like, it's so simple, Rachel. Like, you humans make it so complicated, and so simple. Come back to the heart and just love it all. Love yourself, love everyone, and just know that it's all a teaching.
Just coming back to the ceremonies, what do you call them? What was the word you used? What you did last week?
It's just a deep meditation, journeying to source.
Okay. Yeah. How? I mean, obviously, you know, you've got the signs of being, and obviously, the more you tune in, the more you are able to get the guidance. That I guess it's coming from you anyway. Yeah, you are not God, but God you are, because you are the same source. So how does that come to you? I mean, is it literally coming, people saying, you need to try this, or you know, this is a message, or do you receive it? It's like a radio, do you pick it up yourself?
Well, in my experience of kind of journeying to source. So I guess it's, how would I explain it really? It is definitely a psychic thing of kind of landing teachings, of being in that, getting to that place of real stillness, you know, beyond the head mind of trying to work it out and trying to get to the solution and trying to get the answer and get to the teaching, of getting to that real place of stillness, of absolute connection. And I have to say that one of the most important things on this journey that I really have got, Damian, because essentially, and I'm going to sidetrack here slightly, but this is really important, is in this journey to source, it's so important to, you know, you can't get it from the head. You have to get the gateway is the heart. This is what Jesus was essentially teaching, you know. It's just a shaman teaching about this. The heart is the gateway, and the heart is tuned to the golden mean. So essentially, it's tuned to nature, and so the way to really get into that alignment, that connection, is to almost like to be a spiritual athlete in training, as I jokingly said, but to really get into purity and alignment to plant energy. And so, I mean, I've just really, over the past couple of months, got into absolute purity of green juicing and water, and practically vegan now. And so going into that meditation and in that kind of alignment, of that alignment to the golden mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so physically, in a physical body, to be in that degree of alignment, it's much easier then to connect to source.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that connection and reaching that connection of really, really deep stillness, it's then very easy to be open and to kind of psychically kind of land the teachings, so to speak.
Mm.
And it was in that state that it just showed me of like, it's so simple, you know, this is all an illusion, and it's just showing you how you are out of that alignment in the heart, and how you've moved off. And I'm just showing you how to come back. I'm just showing you what needs healing, where you're out of alignment, where the radio's out of tune. So in this realm of duality, it's just everything, every person that manifests, everything that presents is just a signpost showing where I have moved out of alignment. And so that then becomes the work, is just reading the signs and just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you for showing me. Wow, yeah, thank you for showing me. And then in that place of gratitude, coming back to the center point and you know, remembering that it's just seeing the perfection in everything. Yeah. So it's kind of all of our own work, you know. So when we get into this thing of got to transform the world and fix the world, it's kind of coming from the wrong energy. So I really get with Source, it's just really about an expression of joy. So it's much more about just create a platform where people can just share what they love, not try and fix anyone, heal anyone, you know, teach the world. Just share stuff which makes people's hearts sing, you know.
Mm-hmm. The irony about the world peace equation is that there's nothing needs fixing. That's kind of like the punchline. I'm going to take that bit out of the audio podcast.
Yeah,
because that's
you
really
see,
that's all the work's done inside. So
I know, but the point being about this thing, Damian, I really got this last week so powerfully, is it can't be taught. It can't be taught through the mind. It has to be experienced through the heart. So, you know, that's why, I mean, it's funny because I've got a copy of Course in Miracles here. I've had this book for, oh my God, like at least a decade, and I've never really had the resonance to pick it up. And it's got really sort of, was always too high vibration for me. And I started to read it, and I just thought, oh God, this is like all the things I'm now experiencing, and I really get it. But then I also just get the complexity of it, and the length of it, and the detail of it, and the complication of it, and the how they've made it so difficult to understand something which can just be summed up in like one word, you know, which is love, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the point about it. We're trying to, and I've been kind of guilty of this with Source, of trying to teach people and trying to, you know, share the secrets and and it's just like you can't get there from the head. It's not, because we've all, and this is another whole point I want to just go into, Damian, which sounds like it's a kind of contradiction of what I've said earlier, but you know, the powers that be know the laws of the universe. They know how the universe works. They know about duality, and they know about Source, and they know about the power of metaphysics. And it's like we have all been so taught and trained in this realm of duality that we've got to go to school and be taught logically and think about it, and Newtonian physics, and we've got to prove it, and we've got to logically rationalize, and we've got to find out the references for our thesis, and we've got to write very long theses about things, and things are only valuable if you put a lot of hard work into them, and they're really detailed and they're really long. And so our whole training is designed to keep us in this realm of duality. And it's such an interesting thing when you start dismantling it. And even young boys, you know, like the leaders, we were discussing this on Revelation yesterday, Richard Ashworth was talking about the public school education system, is that our leaders are taken away from their mothers at a very young age into boarding school. The heads are crammed with academia and busyness, and then they're sent out like in the olden days to kind of go and conquer the world and bring back the spoils to build the British Empire, and to rip down, you know, statues from Egypt and bring them back to the British Museum or whatever. And it's only in that removal from the heart that we're able to do these things in this plane of duality without any love or compassion, because it's literally been trained out of us. And so this realm of duality, there's a lot of people who are very deeply invested in this realm of duality and keeping people in this plane. And that's why, in a sense, the stakes are getting higher now. If you noticed yesterday, suddenly we have a snap election. It's like, oh, wow, what the fuck's that about? I mean, maybe I'm going off on a kind of rabbit hole of my own mind here, Damian, but I just can't help thinking it's like, there are so many people now who are holding the light. There are so many people who are holding this higher vibration of this next stage of evolution, in which literally duality will disintegrate before our very eyes as the next dimension is revealed, in which duality will completely collapse. And the thing about all these things like Brexit, like Trump versus Clinton, or I know, let's have a general election, is it Conservatives or Labour? Let's get everyone arguing like yes or no. Binary choices. Do you want Theresa May or do you want Jeremy Corbyn? This or that. It's all about bringing us back into this plane of duality where we are so weakened, you know. And because ultimately the thing is, I don't want any of it. I don't want any of that adversarial politics of that. I don't want any of that anymore. I want a different world. I want a world which has prosperity for every being, peace for every being. And that's the world that I want. That's the world that I want to live in. But ultimately, that desire has to come back to me. Am I at peace? You know,
yeah.
Have I found true prosperity? And so this is the bizarre paradox of this. This is the bizarre, paradox of kind of seeing beyond the veil, really.
Mm-hmm. Just reminded me in the Course of Miracles, there's my favourite line, which is the miracle is much like the body, in that both are learning aids for facilitating a state in which they both become unnecessary.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We've it's interesting. I mean, as you're talking through that, one of the things that certainly landed for me in the last week or so, and again, I guess because of the shifts that are happening, is exactly it's the learning. It's like, you know, you're going to continue to get shown this until you learn it. And even you just saying about the vegan and the green juicy in the water, it's that's come up again and again, time and time again for me recently. I was vegetarian for 18 years, then I was vegan recently for about 6 months, and it was really hard with the kids. But we've got this whole thing, we're struggling with them at the moment about, you know, sugar. So we're
same here.
Yeah, we're on a kind of a learning curve with that one. It's just come up again. So, do you know what? I could just interview you for this whole book.
Well, shall I tell you the thing about sugar, Damian? It's just, I mean, okay, this is another teaching that landed. So, I mean, you can cut all this out because I'm rambling, I know, but I'm just seeing this as a conversation between the two of us. Because it's very interesting to explore this stuff. You know, this is a co-creative collaboration. So I thank you for creating this kind of echo so I can talk through this stuff. Before I did the very deep journey last week, which was incredibly healing, the night before I had a dream, very powerful dream, where my business partner in Source, Kevin, appeared. And he is a shaman, and as well as being a digital marketing guru and all the duality labels, he's also a shaman and an astrologer and a very deep soul. And I know I've had a life with him before in Egypt. Anyway, he appeared to me in this dream, and it was my birthday in the dream, and I was having this celebration out in the garden, but it was just like a very beautiful, beautiful celebration. And he brought 3 wise men, like from the Bible, and 2 monks and he brought these 5 men to my celebration. And then they started singing this most beautiful solfeggio kind of a cappella chant of worship, of just total heart-based alignment, harmony. I mean, it was just incredible. And I got, oh my God, they're not actors or not just people he's hired. They are the real thing. They're ancient beings. You know, they're not just actors who's brought to my party to entertain us. Mm-hmm. They're literally reincarnations of ancient wise souls. And I so landed the teaching after this deep meditation healing journey that they are my 5 sons who have come to teach me. And because I have 5 boys, and they are the 5 wise souls, 3 wise men and the 2 monks. And I just so got that my 5 sons are, I won't go into too much detail about what they've come to teach me, because as a sort of respect to them and some of their difficult journeys, but I get that they have come to teach me 5 key things that are mirrors to my own life. And one of them is about addiction, and this addiction which goes, and you know, the realm of duality does lead us into addiction, because as our coping mechanism, particularly when life is shit or we're taken to the extremes, if we don't understand about how we've moved off the heart, it's very easy to slip into that sort of course correction through addiction, through just reaching for something that makes us feel better, whether it's a glass of wine or a cigarette or sugar or something like that. And so I just really get that sugar addiction is just, and I have this with one of my sons who just craves sugar. And I kind of don't have sugar in the house really at all. I've really cut down, but he'll still find a way to get it. You know, and see, I really got this teaching is the problem is it's not with the cigarette, it's not with the glass of wine, it's not with the sugar. It's just because he just is not feeling enough love. He's not feeling enough sweetness. And the answer is not banning sugar. The answer is just love him even more, you know, just like even more love. And just when you think then there's not, that you've given more enough love, there's just even more. And so bringing everything back into that heart space, and this is the whole planet, you know, like coming into that vertical alignment, then suddenly there's no need for the glass of wine or the cigarette, or, you know, it's like we can completely transcend all addiction in that space. And it's such a beautiful kind of teaching, you know. Yeah,
when we're already connected.
Absolutely.
Why disconnect when you're already connected?
Well, this is the thing, is that we are out of alignment. We are a bit like a radio that's a little bit off tune, you know. And doing this work, when you come into that through the help of, whether it's working with healers or shaman or going to the mountains or sitting in a cave in Tibet or so, whatever it is, when you experience that connection and the purity of it, like really experience that exquisite peace and the essence of it and the vibration of it, and when you really come to that alignment, it's like really being so tuned in to that 0 point, that then the more that you experience that, the more you really notice when you're off, when your radio's out of tune, you know. Mm-hmm. But if you've never experienced that 0 point, you wouldn't know what you were heading for. You wouldn't know what you were aiming for. You wouldn't. It's a bit like trying to cook a recipe, and anyone who's tried to cook a new recipe, like, it's really helpful to have a picture of what it looks like and go, oh yeah, right, okay, that's what I'm trying to create. Okay, now I've got my ingredients and I've got my procedures, but you have in mind, you kind of know what you're trying to create. And this is the thing that I'm saying about it's experiential, is if you've never experienced that connection, how would you know what you're kind of aiming for, sort of thing? And so all these books and all these teachings, so it's very difficult to get there from the mind, because if you haven't experienced it, you don't know You don't know what you're aiming for.
Mm.
And then it makes it very, very difficult to can read every book, you read the Course in Miracles from cover to cover and still not get it. I mean, I've had this book, oh my God, I've had it for a decade. I've got all the knowledge in my library upstairs, you know, and it literally only landed last week. Literally, it was just, I kind of knew it intellectually. I knew it at a theoretical level, but I'd never actually landed it before last week.
I use the analogy of if you've never ridden a bike before, you can read every single book ever written on riding a bike, and you can watch every video. But as soon as you get on that bike and experience it, it will be nothing like you've ever read or watched.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why experiential, and that's why I get that I had to run an experiences company. And so all of the most powerful things I've ever done with Source, that I've ever created through Source, have been the events, have been the experiences where we've actually got people in a room in circle, like at Tyringham, and got people to actually experience it. And there were people who came to that event who'd never done any transformational work before, and were just like, oh my God, what? To us it's just normal, you know, but to people who've never experienced it before, who've always been in a classroom where the performers on the stage and we're all in rows and waiting to be educated by the teacher at the front of the classroom, to actually sit in circle and just to chant and just to open the space in a place of sacred geometry, and to actually chant and tune the space and create a vortex of energy, and yeah, to experience that, if you've never experienced that before, it's like quite mind-blowing. Well, heart-blowing, actually. Heart-blowing, shall we say, not mind-blowing.
Just on that one, because you talked about Egypt, and I read somewhere recently that in Egypt they used to mummify the heart. They used to get rid of the brain. Yeah, to them it was irrelevant, whereas the heart was sacred and important. It seems like we kind of knew a lot more back then. What do you think happened?
What do I think happened? Well, what do I think happened? What do I think happened? Well, just to sort of reflect on that, I was at an event with Nassim Haramein, the quantum physicist who's into consciousness, last year at BAFTA. Got a random invite, as no things are ever random, obviously, and he was talking about that exact thing, about, you know, what happened with the Egyptians, and you know, this sort of ability to build these pyramids, and like with the Mayans, when you go to South America and you see the amazing, you know, temples they created with huge stones which are carved and fit together perfectly to survive earthquakes, and it's just like, how the hell did they do that? And what he basically explained it, he just said, they took the technology away from us. You know, these beings of a higher dimension that that had higher technology of higher dimensions, that in these dimensions that transcend this material realm, they took it away from us. And I guess they took it away from us because they knew we were moving out of the heart into the head mind, which into this realm of duality where the vibration is lower, where it becomes about, we move from using this technology for the beauty that it was created for, into this realm of duality, which is about power and control and greed and ego. And when we drop into that plane of duality and we start using these metaphysical tools and laws to control the people, which is kind of what's happened, actually, that's kind of where it's all gone kind of pear-shaped, I guess. So we've moved out of head into heart. We've moved out of heart into head, into this plane of duality, and it's a way to kind of control humanity, actually. Yeah.
So why do you think now, well, first of all, do you think now is when the shift is happening the other way? And I mean, I think it is, but why? And obviously things are speeding up. You and I both know this. Things are quickening.
Absolutely.
Is it to do with because again, this is above my pay grade, is it to do with the way that the universe is put together? Is the timing right? Because again, time is just is a concept that we've created, linear time.
Well, we've been told in the Bible, in Revelation, and we've been shown in kind of ancient art and paintings and wisdom about this opening of the veil and this great purification. And that's why, and I've said this before in kind of interviews and Facebook live streams, but if you look at any painting of Revelation, of Judgment Day, at the top of the painting you've got the heavens are opening, and you've got the angels trumpeting, and you've got Jesus coming back, and so the heavens, the dimensions are opening at the top of the painting. But if you look at the bottom of the painting, you've got all of these people going through this sort of purging and hell realm of demons, and and so what this is why I believe that this year is the great purification, because as we're opening in, as the higher vibration is coming in, and we're like midwives, we're birthing it through. So we're like holding this center to allow this this next stage of evolution, where we can open into our intuitive psychic ability, where we can move to the next stage of evolution to create a completely different way of living on the planet, which is from the heart as opposed to from the head. So in this great purification, anything that is not in alignment to that pure source energy, it's like having to be healed. And and I know this from doing medicine work, and that there's a lot of purging happens in medicine work, which is part of the healing. It's like as you open to that higher consciousness and that higher vibration, anything that is not of that vibration has to be kind of cleansed and purified and healed and brought into alignment. And so that's what's happening now. That's why so many people are going through a kind of hell realm on the planet in their personal life, because they haven't done the work, of this purification work. And it's difficult work, because in this realm of duality, we're so programmed to move away from pain towards pleasure. And so we're not taught about sitting with our demons. We're not taught about allowing pain. So we just want to fix the pain by moving to pleasure. So rather than experiencing the pain, we'll just pour a nice glass of wine and, and just dissolve ourselves and just try and get rid of it. And so we'll try and fix our life through artificial means of just trying to be happy, make it go away, whereas the real work is actually to sit with the demons and to say, hey, what are you showing me? I mean, you even see this on Facebook of like, get rid of toxic people out of your life, try and cleanse your life of like, get rid of all the stuff that is, bringing you down. But, oh my goodness, toxic people. Hello, Mr. Toxic person. Firstly, why am I judging you as toxic? What piece in me are you reflecting that I feel so painful to be with that I have to try and banish you out of my life? Let's sit down together and let's see why we've been brought together in this great co-creative collaboration. Source has matched us out of this infinite soup of possibilities. Source has brought me you so that I can see a mirror of myself, so that we can both, if we truly allow and truly open our heart and accept that you are a gift to show me my toxin. If I think you're toxic, you are here to show me my toxin. And if I can sit with this long enough, and I can really get the teaching together as part of this co-creation, we can bring it back to alignment. And that is the co-creative collaboration. And that is the work that we're all doing, coming together in these small groups, whether it's, or even, I'm finding this so much with doing mentoring now. I mean, forget this, I am the mentor, you've come for help. It's like, who am I attracting out of this cosmic soup now as part of this next stage of co-creation, of like, what do I next need to learn, you know? And moving out of this teacher disciple kind of thing into just co-creation of like, everyone is our teacher. And so it's very, so looking at life through that, then everything becomes a blessing. And then we surrender, we allow it all, and we see the teaching and blessing in everything. And actually in that space, there's nothing to learn anymore.
I remember Sid Banks said, if the world learned not to be scared of their own experience, that would change the world.
Absolutely. Because fear keeps us in duality. That's why all the great teachers taught about faith. If you have faith, you can transcend duality in an instant. You move from fear into faith. It's an instant alignment to the heart. This is what everything that Jesus was teaching was about. This. He wasn't trying to create a religion. He was just a shaman teaching people how to exit this crazy plane of duality. And if you think back then, Damian, sorry I'm going on now, but if you think back to those times when Jesus came, the world was in a similar turmoil. You had the Romans desperately trying to keep the peace and the law. You had all of the religious people, the rabbis, who were very influential, and I mean they were the ones who actually wanted Jesus to be crucified. I mean, it's funny because I went to church for the first time, like in forever, you know, sort of ages, on Friday for the Good Friday kind of sermon. It was so interesting because they had a whole thing in town of they replicated the Last Supper and then the crucifixion, and then later we went to church and just went along to be part of it and just to witness it really. And so it's quite interesting to be told the story, be reminded of the story as told in the Bible, of basically Pontius Pilate. I mean, it was the rabbis that said, in our law, we're not allowed to condemn a man to death, so you have to do it. But this man is, he says he's the king. He says he's the king, and that's against our laws because, you know, in the 10 Commandments, you shall only have one God and all the rest of it. So this man is defying our laws, but we can't condemn him to death. So you have to do it. You have the power. We can't do it So it's really quite interesting, that whole dynamic of how the story played out. And the Romans just desperately wanted to retain control and power. So they and it's very similar times that are unfolding at the current time. This desperate trying to keep power. And of course, after Jesus, everything just went to shit, didn't it, really? And so it's quite interesting that all of the modern cathedrals and churches are built on the ancient temples, because in those ancient days they knew about, you know, power spots. So they were all built on power spots. So all the churches were built on the ancient Roman temples. And in London, like St. Martin in the Fields is built on the temple to Diana, I think. And I know a lot of this from Kevin because he's an anthropologist. And
So are these places? So it's funny. I put a post up on Facebook recently about you want things to change, but nothing changes. You pray for things to change, but nothing changes, and then nothing changes until you sit down and do the work. And a lot of people kind of responded saying, "Oh yeah, but you're the guy who says do nothing." I said, "Well, that can be the work." I'm not saying what the work is. I'm just saying, you'll find out when it's internal. In terms of connection, though, it sounds to me as if there are places where, I know, because when obviously I came and did that talk with you, there was definitely a feeling about that place, and I understood that it was because there was these ley lines that connected, where that, because we talked about, looking after yourself and eating plant foods and connecting internally. Are there places where there is that higher vibration where you do connect more easily, where it's like you plug into the mains as opposed to Wi-Fi? What would you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is the thing that beyond the veil, it's just like an energetic grid. It's just like a grid of sacred geometry, and there are certain places. So if you think of what's the best analogy? If you think of like weather systems, when they show you the weather systems that are unfolding over the planet, and how this energy is kind of like working in spirals, and then you get sort of vortexes of energy like volcanoes. Not volcanoes. Well, actually, a volcano is a good example, but I was thinking like a hurricane. So you get places which are power spots in this realm of this matrix of energy, which is based on sacred geometry. So in those spots, like where Stonehenge is built, or where churches are built, or where ley lines intersect, those are all incredibly powerful places. They're like amplifiers. And so when you build a building, especially when you build it with sacred geometry, so like all cathedrals are built, and this is the thing that ancients knew, this is sacred wisdom of sacred geometry, which is why all cathedrals are built to notes, so that they resonate. It's all about resonance and they're all solfeggio. They're all tuned to the heart. And so in these power spots, when you build then a chamber, an amplification chamber to sacred geometry, like Tyringham, which is built by a mason, so they know what they're doing. And that's why it was built to the Golden Mean, that room that we did the work in, on a power spot. You're creating a kind of energetic amplifier, which whatever work you do in that spot, whether it's kind of benevolent or non-benevolent in our sort of realm of duality, whatever intentions you put into like throwing the pebble into the lake of stillness, have tremendous power to manifest. And the same thing happens in nature, like in mountains, going to Apu Azangati in the Andes and doing the work there. It's like a massive amplification, because it's like a giant crystal. You're on a giant crystal doing the work. So all of these things are amplifiers. And so when you go to those kind of places and you do nothing, is what you're saying about moving into stillness, of doing nothing. And that's essentially what you're talking about there, is do nothing means stop all of this busyness, move out of this plane of duality, which has us busy, 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 busy. Find that center place of stillness through the heart, this connection, this vertical axis and connection to source. And from that place, drop the pebble of your intention, then it has tremendous power to manifest. And when you do that in a sacred space, it's amplified. And when you do it in a group of people, it's amplified even further. Hence why the Masons are so powerful, because they created their portals, their chambers, and they had secret societies, groups gathering to set their intentions. So of course they have supreme ability to create money, power, if that's what they choose to create, because there is no judgment in unconditional love. In this realm of duality, we can create whatever we like. So if you choose in that space, knowing the knowledge of these metaphysical laws, if you choose to become president of the United States and you understand how the metaphysical laws work of being in that place and keeping that focus, you can manifest it. You can manifest anything, whatever you choose. So there's no doubt that the ancients knew all of this wisdom. This is the ancient wisdom, and that's why it's been suppressed. That's why you're not taught it at school. They don't want us to know the power of this. So we're taught Newtonian physics, not sacred geometry. And but in ancient Greek times, that's I'm pretty sure it was called the 9 liberal arts, where they were taught astrology, astronomy, geometry, mathematics, music, philosophy. They were taught all of these things because they understood the connection between science and nature and geometry and beyond the veil. They understood it all. And that's, in ancient times, they were taught all of these things.
Just slightly amusing sort of offshoot. It just occurred to me as you were speaking. It's like the reason we haven't found our place in Malvern yet is because we've been looking on the wrong estate agent sites. What we need to look for is the one where they have the power spot of sacred geometry, as opposed to the amount of beds and the price.
Wow.
We need to look for the right place, which has the right set power center.
You see, this is the thing. In ancient times, this is feng shui. They knew how to site cities. That's why London is so powerful, because it's just the most it's a power spot, supreme power spot, to sit on a tidal river, to create the center of your power on a tidal river in the Thames Basin. It's a supremely powerful feng shui location. And that is how you can rule the world, how you can create an empire from creating from that place, So, in ancient times, they absolutely cited things. They knew where to place things, whether it's the Great Pyramids, aligned to Orion, and the Nile is the Milky Way. It is the center of the galactic center of our universe, essentially. So it's really fascinating when you start to understand the ancients and how they did things. I mean, they absolutely knew. Yeah.
I had a list of questions, and like most of them we've either gone through in a completely roundabout way, or they're just completely irrelevant.
Oh.
I mean, there was obviously, we started with the kind of the background bit. I had some things like what was the best advice ever given and ever taken, which obviously you've said, in your golden nuggets, and I was going to talk about why scaling was a problem, but I think that's irrelevant. External expansion against internal expansion, we've covered that. Why are we so adverse to failure? We've covered that. What was the best book you've ever given? Well, actually, what's the best book you've ever read in terms of pointing you back inside? And what's the best book you've ever gifted? I'd like to know that.
Well, a book that I keep coming back to time and time again, which I've just reread, actually, which every time I read it, I have a different layer of understanding. And this is what I mean about this work of moving from head to heart, is that this is actually the very first metaphysical book that I ever bought, because I randomly happened to go to a Mind, Body, Spirit festival and just saw it, as the universe does, just presents you with this thing and thinks, oh, that looks interesting, I think I'll buy that. And it's Florence Scovel Shinn, The Game of Life and How to Play It. And it's just a really tiny little book, and you can read it in an hour or two. And I must have read this book 20 times, and yet every time I read it I get a different level and layer of teaching. And so it's a classic example of how of trying to understand stuff with the mind as opposed to reading with your heart, and understanding stuff from a much deeper level. So that is a very powerful book. But again, you see, this is the thing, it's like the biggest teachings and reveals have not come from books, because the thing about books is they have us in the head instantly.
Mm-hmm.
You're reading and you've been taught to read and you've been taught to work it out and logically and try and find and the most powerful teachings that I've ever had have come through experiential experiences of actually sitting in circle, going to sacred spaces, actually going on a kind of experiential journey. So whilst I think books are really valuable, they're almost like a kind of grand distraction, because they automatically take us into the head and out of the heart, and that is the challenge with them. And that sort of comes a bit back to source without realizing it, because I love video, despite the fact of not wanting to come on video today. But I do actually love video as a medium, and I love learning visually. So, for example, when I was researching for Revelation, I actually was watching on YouTube all the videos about Revelation and actually had it read to me, as opposed to wanting to actually sit down and read the book. And it's quite funny because Richard Ashworth said, oh, you're like President Trump, just switch on Fox News for your information. And they were watching it off a video instead of actually going to the Holy Bible and reading the words of, actually wanting to kind of have them visually. But the thing for me is that this is the thing. Video is the closest thing, apart from actually experiencing the energy of something one-to-one. It's the closest next thing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So you've got actually experiencing it, then you've got video, experiencing it via video, then you've got experiencing it through sound, through resonance, then you've got words. So it's kind of, each one is removing a layer of depth. I mean, even just audio, and it was so funny because we had Chloe Goodchild on yesterday's Revelation. She's a singer. She's all about harmonic resonance and coming back to the heart. Is that resonance, just through sound of voice and listening to the resonance when someone's speaking, you're picking up the information from the resonance of their voice more actually than the words, So yeah. So that thing about books, I think, is kind of books are important to get us to remember, but I think the danger with books is that they move us back into the head. Yeah.
I've decided I'm not going to write books anymore. I'm going to write guides.
I guess the biggest thing is to actually live it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is to live it and vibrate it in every moment of every day. That's the best book, really, that you could ever write, because that's really the work, isn't it? Is to actually embody the teachings and to live them on a moment by moment basis, which is a difficult thing. And you can go to have the most amazing experience in a meditation thing and with an amazing group of people and light beings on a mountain, and it's wonderful, and you connect to the source, and it's just like, oh wow. But actually the real work is in the integration of, can I take this teaching, can I take this vibration, the essence of what I've experienced there, that I felt at the heart, that truth, can I take that and can I be it, and can I live it on a moment by moment basis in every moment of every day, with every interaction with every being. And it's like that's the real work, really.
Well, I don't want to have to keep you much longer, but I mean, I could do the whole book just speaking with you, actually, Rachel.
Thank you.
Oh, I really could. I mean, we could just do just carry on for like 6 hours and just talk about all sorts of stuff.
Can I just say one last thing then about, which is another very, 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 very key thing to this.
Yeah.
And that is about water, and then the symbolism of water, in that the six snowflakes, the six-pointed star, the Star of David, six-pointed star, which is essentially heaven connecting to earth.
Mhm.
And that is shown to us in water. That same formation, that this six-sided thing. And water is communication, and communication is love, and love is money. Money is flow. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just so landed this teaching about the power of water, and it's kind of the key ingredient, which is why I had to purify my own waters to be able to connect. Because if water is communication, if we're not hydrated and in purity, it's very difficult for us to connect to source. And source is on this plane. Source is water. The source of all life is the water that comes from the mountain. And then as it flows down from the mountain in its place of absolute purity, as it flows down, it just gets polluted and more polluted and more polluted. And then it gets to the sea. And it's kind of, and then it has to be taken through this process of like being evaporated through this kind of, this great purification of our planet, of purifying the water so that it may fall again onto that mountain and be purified. And so the whole process goes on. But water is the key to all of this. Water is the key to life on this planet, but also water is the key to connection to source, purifying our waters. And if you think of water as communication, as flow, as Richard Ashworth says in Feng Shui, water is not symbolic of communication, water is communication. And so if we think of something like Facebook as a river of communication, and we think of YouTube as a reservoir of communication, reservoir of videos, whereas Facebook is a river, if we pollute that river through angry comments, and I've been guilty of this in the past, of anger, or whatever it's about, even if you feel it's justified, oh, I hate Donald Trump or whatever, it's like throwing a piece of pollution into that river of communication. And if we can, this is the symbolism of the Ace of Cups in the Tarot, which is essentially the Holy Grail, which is the cup overflowing with water, which is our heart overflowing with love. And that's why water is cups, is the heart suit in the tarot. If we can purify our communication and only speak words of love, the whole world would heal and transform. And that's why our oceans are so polluted, and that's why there's so much pollution on this planet, is because our water has become polluted. Our individual water at a physical level, and the water of our communication has been polluted. And I've just so got that teaching. That the answer is in purifying the water.
Just on that note, because I run a workshop, I did one a couple of weeks ago called The Will to Act. And essentially it's a 2-day workshop on how the process of thought works. It's inside out. So, I tell people at the beginning of the workshop, I'm going to show you how the car works, but I'm not going to tell you how to drive it. So, everything I'm going to tell you is fact. It's but what you do with it, it's up to you. So, I show them through scientific and sort of general examples of how their thinking works from the inside to the out. We are the creators. Okay, so that in itself is usually a bit of an eye-opener for people, because they think that they're feeling their circumstances in the moment, whereas actually they're only feeling their thinking about circumstances in the moment. So it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize that part of the equation existed. But I kind of go on in the second part of it to talk about, even, and I'm saying, I'm showing you how the car works, but this is how it's up to you how you drive it. Thoughts are things. And I used the Professor Masaru Emoto example of his experiments that he did with water. And I said, look, this is what can happen if you have words of love versus words of hate. And I've got friends who've even copied that experiment and had exactly the same thing, because they didn't believe it and they tried it. It was like, oh my God, 6 months later, here's the rice which we've been loving, and here's the rice which we've been hating. One's gone moldy, one's perfectly fine. And it really freaks people out. They're like, oh my God, I didn't realize my my words, my thoughts, my intentions had so much power. And it's not actually that they have so much power. It's just, it's like anything, the compound effect, and over a period of time, of course it's going to have power. It's like gravity is actually a very, very weak force, but it holds the whole universe together because of the size of it. Love actually is a very powerful force, and you can feel it. You can feel love. If you give love to someone, you can really feel it in that moment, and vice versa. So it's kind of, it's moving away from what I kind of, my kind of key, my guiding is very much about how the direction works. It's inside out, not outside in. And that's pretty much, that's in my pay grade. But I kind of point people towards, well, there's this infinite potential here. And this is one example of it. And I've got other examples of people that have manifested stuff out of thin air. And it's like, again, by using faith, it's like they absolutely believed it would happen. And guess what? It happened. Faith can move mountains. So, and it's interesting that, well, obviously you talked about water there, because I think water is key, and it's gone on my list of life lessons, because I've made a list, which is something I had to do, of the lessons that keep coming back to that are going to keep coming back until I do something about them, and one of them was water and hydration. But what do you think about that thoughts, and about the thoughts being things, and obviously intention and manifestation? I know we can do like a whole other section here, so if you have to go, just tell me. But
No, I'm happy to stay as long as you want to. Thoughts have tremendous power. Literally the whole universe starts to rearrange itself based on our intention and our thought. Because essentially this is what Nassim Haramein explained from the sort of quantum physics level, is that the universe is a very advanced technology, and it's an infinite feedback loop. And so whatever you're putting out, the universe has to return to you. And so if you're putting out hate, then the universe has to show you hate. If you're putting out love, then the universe has to show you love. So if you hate whatever it is, a bowl of rice, then the universe has to show you a kind of hated version of that, a kind of decomposed version. And if you love a bowl of rice, it has to show you a beautiful version. That's the way the universe works at a quantum level. And so, but the really key thing, and this is why Bruce Lee said, "Don't think, feel. Don't think, feel," is that while we're in the realm of thought, we're in the realm of duality, and that's all duality is. It's just constantly showing us how we've moved out of the heart into the head, and how we moved out of alignment. And so this realm of duality, this infinite feedback loop, is just showing us what, just a course correction the whole time. Just showing us a course correction, because what it wants us to do is to come back to the heart and come back to the alignment to source, so that we can see the truth. And so that's why don't think, feel is like, and any time you're in this mode of thinking and thoughts, you're in duality, you're in ego, actually. But when you drop into the heart, then you're in a completely different dimension, because you're accessing, that's the thing, do nothing, drop into the heart, do nothing. You're then starting that vertical journey to connect to source. And that's the place that true inspired action comes from, true inspiration of amazing songs or incredible books or whatever it is you want to create on this material. When you come back to this material realm, stuff that comes from that vertical space is magic, pure magic. And one really key thing to say on this, and this is the mind fuck, right? We got to the mind fuck here, Damian, which is, and it was actually echoed by, and of course, as you do this work, there are no mistakes in the universe, because the universe is constantly speaking to us all the time with everything. Every Facebook post that's presented, everything that shows up in our awareness is a clue on the path, a piece of the jigsaw, if we would only tune in and slow down enough to notice. And yesterday there was a great post of a quote by Osho, which is the reason he was explaining the reason why after so many millennia, still we can't accept these simple teachings of like just drop to the heart, transcend duality, and just move to that alignment, because we've got so much invested in this realm of duality. Because if we truly believe this and we truly live this, it completely collapses our whole reason for being. Of like, there's no book to write, there's no one to fix, there's nothing to teach, there's just me, just me with a task to return home. And from that, it's a mind fuck. So, well, how am I going to make some money, and how am I going to, I'm going to feed my children, and then you get back into the headspace of like, oh my God. And that's a very difficult place where we are, of this training, this survival training is so deep, is so entrenched of this realm of being in duality. We're so entranced by it that it's very difficult to transcend it. And that's what Osho was saying, is like, that's why we can't let it go, this realm of duality, because we're so attached into it for our very survival. And this is the thing, is like, to be able to completely let that go and have faith, that is the ultimate faith, to drop into heart and just to let go of the whole of duality. And that is why you have monks who are just sitting in caves in Tibet, just living literally on prana, because they've achieved that. They've managed to transcend duality to the point where they don't even need to eat anymore, And that is the kind of nirvana of it. But then from that place, it's just like, well, where do I have my fun? And what about all the parties? And and what about all my friends? And what about, because we're so entranced by this realm of duality. But I do think that there is another way of being that is longing to be revealed to us, and that is the quest. And that's why we're all playing with all of these concepts and ideas of trying to find that, trying to get to that connection. So, because we are architects of the new paradigm, we are. And when were you born, Damian?
1969, September the 2nd.
Yeah, so you're like, okay, so sorry to go on here, but this is important too. Between 1962 and 1968, Uranus and Pluto joined. There was a conjunction. It's a very rare conjunction. It's like every 3,000 years. And I was told this a long time ago by an astrologer, is that we are the architects of the new paradigm, people who were born in that era. And because we just come through the first aspect of those two planets, Pluto and Uranus, which happened in 2012 and has happened time and time again over the past few years, it's like the first activation of those seeds into the architects of this new paradigm. And you being sort of that, like the next wave where it's all moved into Libra, you're like the interior designers of like, so it's like we're the architects who built this building. Imagine we built this building, and then the interior designers come and make the whole thing really beautiful. So it's like because you've moved into Libra, and Libra is all about beauty. That's why you're writing. Your soul is longing to write about peace and beauty and harmony, and because you're an interior designer of like this new paradigm, right? So which kind of moves beyond the mechanical kind of engineering of will the building stand up, and where do we put the steel girders? You get the beautiful thing of like, what colors do I paint it, and what paintings, and what furnishing shall I put in this, and how can I make it like the most beautiful? That's the next stage. So not quite sure how I got to that point, but it's so important to say anyway.
Oh, brilliant. I think we were talking about water a minute ago.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. And as I said, I could just talk to you all day and about, and just keep going. We haven't even talked about consciousness yet or anything like that. So it's like, wow. Okay.
Well, that's all about consciousness.
You are. It's all
Connecting
about.
to source, coming to the center. It's experiencing consciousness, and that's the thing, seeing beyond the veil of duality and connecting to source, connecting at the heart. And that's when we can experience pure consciousness. And from that place, that 0 point, then we understand. Then we can transcend duality, and we can be the witness, as opposed to being drawn into the playing field. We can just be the witness, and to be in a place of absolute gratitude for everything that manifests in our awareness. And that's the place from which we can create and move to inspired action. And that's what's going to create the new paradigm. Yeah. So it's all really important, powerful work, all of this work, all of these conversations.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. And I really don't think I want to change this in any way. I think I'm quite happy to put this out as a much longer podcast, because I think it's flowed wonderfully, and I wouldn't want to edit it, I don't think. That's okay with you. I'll have to put it in the non-clean category, unfortunately.
Non-clean.
Yeah, because there's a couple of swear words in there, but on iTunes. That's okay. I think give it some extra spice. Oh, Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I think it was just wonderful. Loved it.
Yeah.
I made so many notes as well.
Thank you for inviting me.
Lots and lots of things for me to get into my head about, but and then to drop into my heart about afterwards. So
yeah. Wonderful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, actually, this is going to come out next week, so I'll send you the link when it's out. And
great.
Yeah.
Fab. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
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 Rethink Everything.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Rethink Everything. I wonder if you could do me a favour. Can you just nip over to iTunes and leave me a review and subscribe? That's going to help me to get the best quality world-changing thinkers onto the show. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.